All right. Good morning from the wet and rainy Eola Hills outside Amity, Oregon. And Brian, thank you for the nice intro there.
Not a problem.
And so, hey, our first guest this morning was the first, to everybody's knowledge, the first Russian to coach baseball in the United States. He was definitely the first Russian to coach collegiately in the United States. And our guest is Dimitry Sagalchik. Dimitry, how you doing this morning?
I'm great, Norm. How are you?
I'm doing good. So did I get that right? The first Russian, to our knowledge, you were the first Russian to coach in the United States?
It appears to be. Wayne Coffey did the research 20 years ago, and he couldn't find anybody else.
So how did you get involved with baseball?
In mid-80s, baseball became a part of the Olympics. It was one of the attempts. And at that time, Soviet Union put some funds and money to the sport, and I shown interest and studied a program in Belarus, which was a part of Soviet Union at that time. And since then, at least in Belarus, program is growing, and elsewhere in parts of Soviet Union.
And so, I mean, growing up, how many fields did you have? There couldn't have been many.
Well, no fields. Historically, what happened was in Europe, after the World War II, with American soldiers staying, baseball was more popular in the west parts of Europe, but not in the east. Interest was sporadic. People played on games look like baseball, but never baseball, and it was no fields. We thought was the best way to approach it, and we utilized soccer fields to start with, and approached Cubans and Nicaraguan students at that time who were plenty in the country to teach us and share equipment and share skills, play with us, and starting from there. And then individually, every city, every country approached the local officials, showed the interest, showed popularity, and fields started appearing since then.
So you end up. Go ahead.
Well, Czech Republic is a good example. It's actually a unique example of what's going on currently in Eastern Europe. People playing everywhere in the country. There are, if I'm not mistaken, 29 baseball fields. Some of them with the lights. International tournaments in Prague. Prague alone has two baseball complex. Once, when I was in Prague a couple of years ago, I gave a taxi driver a direction, and he didn't know where to go. But then I said, it's a baseball field, and he said, oh, I know where it is. So this is a popular game in the Czech Republic. But not the case elsewhere. Everyone else is, I would say, trying hard and trying to get funds and trying to get interest and build the fields and bring international interest to the region.
So you come over to America, and how did you get involved with coaching college baseball?
I after getting my master's, I got a job in one of the colleges downtown Manhattan and worked into athletic department and said that they need a baseball coach. And at that time, it was a process of renewing the program, and I got lucky. And, they offered me this season, and I started coaching a team and stayed with them for 4 years. Initially, team was not doing well, but interest around me was something which local papers picked up and local TV picked up, and we brought attention to college at that time. We downtown Manhattan, no fields either.
And like you said, you struggled with that. team probably, I think it was the first couple of years?
The first year was terrible. We did not win a game. We played every game on the road. We just were not good. But that changed in the following year, and from that on, we've done some recruiting, and the players got used to me. My accent, my style, my non-true baseball country experience, and I think that helped.
And so now you're involved with growing baseball in Eastern Europe. And so my question with that is for our listeners now, what lies within the term Eastern Europe? So you've got countries like Belarus, and I'll let you answer that question.
Well, from north to south, it's from all the Baltic states, which is Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Belarus, Ukraine, Moldova, Romania, Bulgaria, Slovakia. So that is the core of Eastern Europe, where baseball on the par, not as successful as on the west side.
Okay.
There are many reasons. We can to name few. Geography, and the geography is one. In order to play a game, even for the youth programs, you need to travel 300, 500 kilometers, or 280 miles. That is a huge challenge just to find a game. No fields, not everywhere fields. Countries like Estonia and Lithuania don't have any fields. Romania doesn't have a field. Moldova doesn't have a field. The situation is better in Poland and Belarus a little bit, but it's still not enough. So there are some challenges which they locally trying to solve it, but it's not that simple.
And I was asking a question here, thinking of one. So now, when you think of Eastern Europe, you think of like Czech Republic, and and baseball is really growing there. How is baseball growing in these other countries? Is it slow? And what do we need to do to help market baseball in those countries?
In my opinion, it's very slow. If you take a couple of examples, a little bit on the left, let's take Czech Republic. Czech Republic did right things, and I just want to go to the Federation and ask what they did it, and just for them to do a seminar around Europe and educate others. That will be to start, just to do that. How others can help. So there are several areas where improvements are needed, and in my plan, it's the depth and the length. And what I'm saying is, as far as the length is, a number of cities where the baseball is played, it's from the youth to the adult. People in the West don't even realize that East doesn't have an organized league or organized championship. Local countries, they have from 4 to 6 teams, which is competitively, it's not enough. They do not have something in common where they can play with each other. Somebody from the West thinks it's all established, but unfortunately it's not. If you don't have a league, the youth doesn't have an idol to look after and even have a desire to play. Youth doesn't know about the game because it can't see anywhere. You go and trying to recruit, and the young person, what's the baseball? So go, let's see the YouTube, let's see the video. So the area to improve, people who involved in the baseball countries, including the United States, from the marketing point is to bring baseball to the country through agreements with the local officials, the agreements from the local media to start broadcasting the game on TV. The playoffs is a great opportunity to that, and even the season highlight, and just to expose the youth, the children, to a game, so they have to just go elsewhere and just see, why they're doing that, why they're hitting the ball, why they're catching it, just to be exposed to the game, to have interest. So this is one. Number two NBA, and you will see a lot of Eastern European players being a core of the team. So one can think that the physical talent and mental talent is actually there. So what can we do to use that? And just the hockey league, you can see that there are people, there are players that could play the game. They're tall, they're strong, they're mentally tough. They can do that. They need to see the game. They need to try it. So somebody, we can talk. We can come up with a 5-7 year plan where, which I already have, which we can just bring the game, start selling T-shirts and baseball hats, MLB hats, to monetize on it, and to grow the talent for NBA to become a second NHL with an Eastern European presence.
Interesting.
Another thought which I'm also pursuing is World Baseball Classic. In my opinion, is a great tournament.
Mm-hmm.
MLB with the World Baseball and Softball Confederation, they came up with this format, and I think it's a great popularity in each individual country. So Europe is represented, but it's a Western Europe, and Israel, of course. If the people at MLB and MLB International will think, let's take a look at Poland. You have Stolovitsky who can play. Let's take a look at Ukraine. Zubris Semel is helping Ukraine any chance they have. If they can combine the Eastern European to one team, let's say Team Europe, that alone can get an interest from entire region. And if it's a 4-year cycle, it's a motivation for 4 years. And same with the Olympics. Baseball is a part of the Olympics. Bring Olympic qualifiers to the region. It will let each federation opportunity to participate in something which everyone dreams. Every athlete dreams to play in the Olympics. Qualify is a start. And qualifiers in all these tournaments, they will bring interest from local officials, sports officials, media, sponsors to the game, and we'll start building facilities, and we'll bring interest from all the sides. City, sports, media, youth, baseball, from everyone. This is, in my opinion, how we can capitalize on things like the World Baseball Classic and the Olympics.
Interesting. I definitely think, the World Baseball, I love the World Baseball Classic. I love seeing, the growth in these other countries, your non-baseball countries, Brazil and Israel, and which actually you have a connection to with the Israeli guys that I had found out. And, we had interviewed quite a few of those guys. I've had on the show Nate Fish and Peter Kurz and guys like that. And I'm in love with Israel baseball. I hope that they do well coming up this spring. And let's talk a little bit about your connection with the Israeli team. And then let's chat about how, what about baseball drew you in? Why you fell in love with the game?
Last summer, this is about my connection to Israeli team. Last summer, during European Championship, Belarus national team in Vienna, Austria, and I've met the representation from Israel, the president of the federation, Peter. They had board members arriving to Vienna to support their team. They wife one of the members had a family out of Belarus, survived the Holocaust, and we had a very lovely conversation. And since then, since last summer 2015, the relationship just built on. I went to Israel myself, met with few. Visited their practice here in New York before the qualifier, the World Baseball Classic qualifier. Spent some time, and that's that's how it grew gradually. And I also support the World Baseball Classic, and I also support wish well to the Israeli team. And it's a good example, and I think it's something Eastern Europeans and others should actually consider. MLB compensating Israel Federation for participation in many different forms, and it's not only cash, it's uniform, it's equipment, it's moral support, it's advice, and it's a direct relationship. And after the finals, probably when MLB International will have a little bit more time, we'll start talking how the entire tournament can be extended. Maybe some creative ways to do it, and I think that they should do it, and they should understand the need of it. It's good for everyone. It's good for MLB because they're marketing the game there, and it's good for local baseball coaches, baseball officials who actually need a little bit of straw. They need the straw to breathe. And my baseball, you probably when you grow, you can understand that when you just start playing the game, you can never leave.
Yep.
So I started a little late. I started when I was 20, but it's hard to explain that love to the game. It's just always with you. Relationships might be warmer with someone or colder, but baseball is something special. I cannot explain it. How to explain your first love? You just can't.
It's funny because I'm in process of writing a piece for a blog I write for occasionally called 9-Inning Know-It-All, and it's what baseball means to me. And this has been in process for like 3 years, and so and it keeps changing for me because when my dad died a little over a year and a half ago. Baseball came in play in my life like it has never done before. Baseball for me was a game at that point. At that point, when my dad passed away, baseball, it was a family. It became a family. That's when I noticed that, everybody around me within the baseball community, they surrounded me and with the love and if it wasn't for baseball that summer, man, I don't know if I would have gotten through that tough time, and I see that, with, Jose Fernandez, for example, his passing, and we had a good friend pass away here Friday morning, Charlie Lau Jr., passed away of natural causes, and baseball, yes, it's a game, but it's also a lifestyle. And, we're all family. Baseball is just one big family. And it's a beautiful game. I'm watching, we're watching the World Series right now. And, a lot of people would be, talking about the Chicago Cubs choking, but I don't see it that way. I don't know if the Cubs, for whatever reasons, the Cleveland Indians, man, they're playing great baseball. They're throwing, breaking balls to the Cubs, they're throwing them off their game. And that's the beauty of baseball, is that, Chicago Cubs, they were the favorite coming in, and they don't win all the time.
I completely agree. Everything you said about baseball, or people who is with baseball being a part of the family, part of the one community. It's something special. I hope everyone understands that, just to look at the concept of it. And as far as the game playoffs, it's fans are showing their emotion. Right? Everyone is rooting for the Cubs, and it's understandable.
Yep.
Right? It's kind of time. And we all feel like it, like Cubs, we don't like Cubs. We all feel for them. But on Cleveland, there are 4 pitchers who can spin that ball. Somebody go and try to hit that. It's not that easy. It's not an easy job.
It's funny because you hear of fastball, Aroldis Chapman, but you're hearing a lot about spinning the ball this World Series, which is something you normally don't hear. And Corey Kluber last night was a complete different pitcher than he was in Game 1. I mean, he threw more breaking balls than he did fastballs last night. So he kind of reinvented the wheel. And, man, it's got me scratching my head. I mean, here we should be, going into, Game 5 tonight. We should be talking about the Cubs being up in the series, but here we are talking about the Cleveland Indians has a shot of clinching the World Series tonight in Chicago.
That's right. That's fair.
And
That's right. Just to comment on the pitching. This is why we love the game, right? Because we know how difficult to do both. Everything, actually. The pitch, the hit, the catch, the run. We know it's difficult, and we appreciate everyone who does it much better than us. And that's why we enjoy the game. Or, we just like that. If you look at the Maddox, let's say, 10 years ago, who didn't have speed or even his spin wasn't there, but control and intelligence and knowing the hitter and, sometimes knowing the umpire, that's what makes them unique and best.
Mm-hmm.
And Cleveland got what they needed. It seems like it's not over. It's not over, but they
absolutely not.
I'd like to add another thing about spinning, and it's going back to Eastern Europe. There is one talent in the Pirate system today in the AAA. His name is Davidas Neverauskas, who pitched in the future game last summer in San Diego. He is the spinner, and if he's a nasty spinner, which is a compliment in this case.
Mm-hmm.
He has a shot. Actually, he might be that marketing thing which can help Eastern Europe. He might have a shot next year to play for one of them in the major leagues. He's really good, tall. It's another representation that what Eastern Europe can produce, and it's not an exception. There are so many of them. MLB signed this year one. There are several candidates already, and MLB is looking for talent. But I think to look for talent. It's difficult, one philosopher said, it's very difficult to find a black cat in a dark room. But it's difficult, so let's put some light there.
Let's end the show today with a two-part question. And the first part is, in 10 years, where do you want to see baseball in Eastern Europe? And the second part of that question is where you actually see it being in 10 years?
It's a good question. I would like to see a competitive league in the region. And when I say competitive, it's similar what Dutch have, what Germany has.
Mm-hmm.
And it's inter-country league. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be in one country. It could be, considering geography and considering everything else. It could be multiple countries playing in one league, like continental hockey league. Prototype, which will give everyone an opportunity to look towards local officials. In order to play, local officials will build the fields. The kids will try everything to play in that league and represent themselves and continue their career when they become 16 and 17, when they know where else to go, and leaving baseball because of that. I would like to see youth programs throughout the region, not focused on one center, but throughout. I would like to see local officials giving attention to sport a little bit more, converting soccer fields, which in some cases not used, to a baseball field, which doesn't take much. You have everything there, you just need to build the infield. And I would like to see MLB put in a little bit of effort as well to a region, which will benefit them tremendously from the marketing point of view. Those are my points.
All right. Well, Dimitry, we thank you for coming on the show and sharing a little bit about Eastern Europe, baseball in Eastern Europe. And, let's do this again down the road, and we'll get caught up with you. And, let us know, what we can do to help you out and get the word out about baseball in Eastern Europe.
Norm, thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun, and it's a pleasure.
Definitely. Dimitry, once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Norm.
All right, so baseball in Eastern Europe. I actually have a buddy, Doc Jacobs, who we've had on the show, said that he would love to go play baseball over in Eastern Europe, and that'd be kind of cool, Brian.
It would be very cool. If you look at kind of what they do with basketball, I'm assuming it's similar in that situation where they have their own league and, an up-and-coming type league. Not maybe your stars that play over here, but
right.
Those who some could play over here.
Oh, absolutely. So, hey, once again, I'm Norm. That is Brian, and we are Clubhouse Chatter. I want to touch on Jose Fernandez a little bit. And my heart was broke again yesterday as results from the toxicology tests came out and said that he had cocaine in his system and he was legally well past the limit for alcohol. The alcohol part of it doesn't surprise me. But then again, I don't know Jose Fernandez personally. And so my question is that the Marlins, they were quick about wanting to retire number 16, Jose Fernandez jersey. My question is, does this changes the whole deal now? What do you think, Brian?
I don't know if it changes it. They shouldn't have done it in the first place. We talked about it.
And I agree with that. I mean, he was too young. He hadn't played for very long.
I think we're at a point in our country and in our society where if something like this happens, we try to memorialize it and pick it apart and use it as motivation. I think it's gone a little too far. That's my personal opinion.
I was shocked, and I shouldn't have been shocked. That's the thing, is you just never know. And
correct.
At this point, I don't care who was driving the boat. This does change his legacy a little bit, and there's no doubt that Jose Fernandez was a great, young, up-and-coming pitcher with the Miami Marlins.
Great people do stupid things.
They do.
Always have, always will.
And I always go back to Lenny Bias. Lenny Bias, back in 1985, drafted number 1 by the Boston Celtics. He goes to a party, tries cocaine for the very first time, and it kills him. That story haunted me. Every time I was around the drug, people were using, I always went back to that one story of Len Bias, and it scared the shit out of me. And that is why I've never tried cocaine because of that fact.
It's a scary scenario, but people unfortunately do stupid things.
They do. Once again, I'm Norm. That is Brian. We are Clubhouse Chatter. Hey, we are sponsored by Baseballisms. If you like my shirt, if you like my Washington State Husky color, or Washington State Cougars. I don't even know who they are.
You didn't even watch the game, didn't even know who the mascot is. It's football. What's football?
You could check it out on baseballisms.com. We're also sponsored by baseballdudes.com. To be the best, you must train like the best. Chris Gazelle up there. Base by Pros, Mitch Canham up there in Washington, building a sports education. His dad, MDM Designs, Mark Canham, does all of our shirts. And we stream live every week on yamhilltoday.com. Hey, if you got an idea for an upcoming show, shoot me an email, normbo18@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter, Clubhouse Chatter 1T, Facebook, YouTube, iTunes, MLB.com blogs. Hey, I want to give a shout out to good friend Charlie Lau Jr. Passed away Friday morning in his sleep. I've posted his interviews on the show. He's been on the show a couple of times. One from the way back in the Blog Talk days. Charlie was a hitting guru. Of course, carrying on the torch from his dad, Charlie Lau Sr. For those of, the 80 kids who, remember, Max Dugan Returns, Charlie Lau was in the movie, taught George Brett about hitting, among many others. It's kind of ironic, here Justin Hayward is having troubles hitting the baseball, and the one guy who I think that could have helped him figure it out, Charlie Lau, passed away Friday morning. Charlie, we love you, and rest in peace, buddy. Hey, we'll be back at 10:30 with Dave Bristol.